Republicans in Congress have actually passed the Born Alive Act. Not that it really matters too much, considering, of course, the Democrats still maintain control of the Senate as well as the presidency. However, the good part about the Republicans actually doing something like this is that it has forced the Democrats to now take a side on the issue of whether or not you should provide health care to a baby that has been born during, of course, a botched abortion. I mean, it's absolutely insane to think that there's actually a side to take on this whole position. I mean, the reality is you have a child that is crying, that is breathing, that wants to live, and you're debating whether or not you should just let it die or take it to a hospital. And guess what? Around 210 Democrats voted against the bill. I have to laugh or else I think I might cry. 210 Democrats actually voted against a bill that simply said, hey, if you go for an abortion and it ends up becoming botched and the child gets born instead, hey, you have to take them to a hospital and make sure they get the medical care they need. All right, the Democrats aren't even trying to hide it anymore. Before they would say, they try to make all these weird assumptions about when personhood begins, whether it be viability or whether it be, of course, its location, whether or not it's in the womb versus out of the womb, which is just such a idiotic way of looking at it all. Because, of course, our biology doesn't change based on our location exactly, right? It changes based on how, obviously, biology changes based on how old and how far along they're developed, but their location means nothing. Like, there's no difference, really, between a child that was born, that's 9 months from conception, that was born at 8 because it's a preemie, and a child that's at 9 months yet still in its mother's womb. There's really no difference in biology between those two children. Yeah, of course, the one that's still in the mother's womb is okay to kill, according to the Democrats. But we're not even talking about that right now. We're talking about a child that has already been born. A child that is living, that is breathing, that is crying. That's what we're talking about. And 210 Democrats voted against the bill saying, hey, you gotta take that child to a hospital. This is how far they've gone. Here's the thing. Virginia's Ralph Northam said in an interview that this exact same thing. That if a child is born and the parents don't want it, they can have a discussion with their doctor as to how to proceed next. Implying, of course, that they would just let the child die. And the funny thing is that was only a few years ago or so. And for the most part, he was roundly ridiculed. I remember being in Virginia, because I was living in Virginia at that time, and actually I was doing, I believe I was still doing door knocking for a local politician around that time. And I remember going to Democrats and them saying, oh my God, I can't believe what Northam said. That's absolutely horrendous. That's absolutely terrible. Like, that's how far it went then. Yet now you have almost every single Democrat, except for one Democrat. One Democrat was the only one who voted in favor of this bill. Other than that, every other Democrat voted against giving children the medical care they need. The party, of course, for universal health care is wanting to deny health care to the most needy of us. That is where we're at. And here's the kicker. Here's the real kicker. Right here, it says, Democrats said the bill would interfere with families' medical decisions. Listen, I have 2 young children. I do not think it's a medical decision whether I say, hey, I want them to die or live. That's not a medical decision. That's just me being a horrendously evil person. And that's, at this point, I think what Democrats are just straight up being, right? I mean, there is no way you could defend this sort of stuff. There's no way you could defend to me in any relative way that if a child is born alive, we're not going to help them. And that is what they're saying. There's a debate. All right, everyone, there's a good debate on where personhood begins. All right, I know some people are going to say, no, it's this or it's that. No, I think there is a debate to be had about it. Now, I, for one, believe at conception, because I think that's the only place it really makes sense, is around the time when its unique DNA has started to form, and I think that is the point of which we have to say it's a human in my personal view. However, there's others who would say it's when the heartbeat starts. I disagree with it, but I do understand where that comes from, and I think there is a worthwhile debate to be had there. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a child that is born. You could hold the child in your hands. And they're saying, no, it's okay to kill it. Oh my God, it is mind-numbingly bad. I don't know how these people can sleep at night. So through here, it says, nearly every House Democrat on Wednesday voted against the legislation that would require immediate medical attention for babies who are born alive after an attempt was made to abort them. Again, they're actually born. They're in the world. They're outside the womb. They can live on their own now. All you have to do is take them to a hospital and get them the care they need. That's all you need to do. They're alive. The House passed the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which says any infant born alive after an attempted abortion is a legal person for all purposes under the laws of the United States. Now, I frankly would argue, obviously, that at conception it's a legal person, but hey, you know what? This is progress, right? We're saying that if you're actually born, you're a person. What do you know? How crazy is that? Doctors will be required to care for those infants as a reasonably diligent and conscientious healthcare practitioner would render to any other child born alive. The bill passed 220 to 210. All 210 of the no votes came from Democrats. Only one Democrat voted for the bill. Rep. Henry Culler of Texas. Of course, it's got to be a Texan. Hey, you know what? My respect to you. All right, Henry, I probably would despise you on most other issues, but on here we can at least agree. Here we can at least say, what do you know? If a child is born, they can't be killed or they shouldn't be murdered. Like that you would think that would be common sense, but this is now what we're celebrating. We have to celebrate someone for saying, hey, you shouldn't murder a child. Just unreal that that's where we're at now. One other Democrat representative, Vincent Gonzalez of Texas, voted present. So it's funny that the two Texan Democrats are the ones who, of course, were not on board with just saying kill babies after they're born. But the funny thing is how they're justifying it, right? Like we all know the real reason is because they've now bought into this cult where it really is a death cult at this point. Again, we're talking about children who are already born and whether or not you can still kill them after they've been born. That's what we're talking about right now. So when they say, yes, you should still be allowed to let them die, we know we're dealing with basically a death cult at this point. And they've got themselves in this corner because they've constantly said over and over and over that no, it always is a decision for the mother. It's always a decision for the mother. It's always a decision for the mother. And they'd never wanted to have that real conversation about what is a person. Hell, they can't even define what is a woman. So I guess defining what is a person is definitely a very deep philosophical question for them, for sure. They have no idea what makes a human being a human being. They have no concept of what makes us unique, what makes us individuals, and why our life is to be protected. And because of that, they're at a point now where how can they not vote against this bill? It's just amazing, though, because they're not just saying, well, we're going to vote against this bill because we want these children to die. That's not what they're saying. They're finding a way to try to twist their words around to make it seem like they actually still care about this child. Like they actually care about this child. So here we got, I saw this Greg Price post here on Twitter. This is Nadler saying why he voted against a bill protecting children who have been born. So here.
The problem with this bill is not that it makes anything, that it is not that it provides any new protections for infants. The problem with this bill is that it endangers some infants by stating that that infant must immediately be brought to the hospital, where, depending on the circumstances, that may be the right thing to do for the health and survival of that infant, or it may not. That is the problem with this bill. It directs and mandates a certain medical care which may not be appropriate, which may endanger the life of an infant in certain circumstances. That's why we oppose this bill. Not the
So you gotta love that. They're saying the idea of taking a child to the hospital could endanger the child because what if the child doesn't need to go to the hospital? What care would they be able to provide at an abortion clinic to the child that they could not provide at a hospital. In which case would this ever be an actual issue? And here's the thing. If it's an actual issue, you're really telling me if they actually do what they can to save that child, which the bill mostly says, the bill actually says that they just need to take the proper procedures to save the child's life. As long as they're taking those procedures, they should be in the clear. But no. They're trying to make it sound like they're actually they're protecting the infant in this weird case where an abortion clinic has the ability to save an infant's life, but the hospital can't because maybe it's too far away or something. It's amazing. They're trying to twist their words in such a way that they try just so hard to make it seem like they're the good guys. They're trying so hard. And another one here that was, to me, absolutely hysterical. Representative Hillary Scholten or whatever. You gotta check this out.
Of parental and maternal rights and in opposition to H.R. 26. I'm the first mother in history to represent West Michigan in Congress. This matter is deeply personal to me. I recently shared publicly about my own experience navigating a complex miscarriage and the loss of my daughter. As a pro-choice Christian who chose life, this issue is so personal to me. My faith informs my actions, but it doesn't dictate the policy of an entire nation. And further, when I read the scripture, I turn to passages and I'm guided by passages like Jeremiah 1 verses 5, which states, I knew you before I formed you and I placed you in your mother's womb. It doesn't say the government's womb or the speaker's womb. It says the mother's womb. I believe life is precious, but I reject the idea that if I embrace the sanctity of life, I also must be forced to invite the federal government in to regulate it. We must protect families from unnecessary government intrusion into the most sacred and personal decisions of our lives.
Okay, real quick, for one, you do not care about the sanctity of life if you're for abortion. I'm sorry, you cannot play that card. You just can't. You do not get to say you believe in the sanctity of life if you're for the killing of a child. That just cannot be done. Second off, a pro-life or a pro-choice Christian, then you're not really much of a Christian. I'm sorry, you cannot be pro-choice and a Christian. You can't be pro-choice and I believe Jew or Muslim either. I know pretty heavily with the Jewish people who I know, at least, they say that, obviously, I've never fully read their stuff, but they claim to me that you can't really be pro-choice and Jewish, and I believe the same goes for being Muslim. Points, being religious, you believe, of course, that every person has, or at least Abrahamic religions, believe that every person does have a soul. And because of that, they don't tend to look very kindly on people who kill other human beings, especially the most defenseless among us, aka children. Now, the funny thing about this is, I don't like talking about religion when it comes to the idea of abortion. I really don't. I'll pull this aside real quick. So, I was an atheist when I became pro-life. All right, I was raised in a Christian home, but I got away from it, and then just a bunch of things. I became an atheist for a good long while, and I became pro-life after I became an atheist. Up till then, my rule was very simple. I said, I'm not going to touch this issue with a 6-foot pole. Like, I was always like, I'm staying far away from this issue as much as possible. I am not discussing this issue. And I was pretty much, whatever. If people want to get abortion, they get abortion. I didn't care. I even bought into the whole Freakonomics argument about the fact of, abortions are actually good for the economy and everything. And just a bunch of total nonsense back when before I was an atheist. I then became an atheist. And eventually someone asked me I was kind of discussing this issue with, they said, have you ever watched an abortion take place? Have you actually watched videos about what an abortion is? And I watched a video of an abortion, and I'm telling you, it struck me. Like, I felt sick to my stomach. I paused it. I walked away from it. I didn't want to finish it. And it wasn't until I realized the fact of, okay, if I can't even finish this video, clearly there's something on the inside telling me why this is wrong. And I went back and I watched the entire video, and after seeing what I saw, I feel wrong even describing it, to be honest, because it was so horrendous on my mind, basically. I was literally in tears afterwards. Later on, I became religious, but I don't believe you need to be religious to argue on the pro-life side, because I was pro-life back when I was an atheist. Because it's pretty simple. It's a unique human life, and it shouldn't be killed. It's as simple as that. And people argue, of course, the like 1% cases where it's like the life of the mother, or a case of rape or incest or anything like that. Well, you know what? I'll make those exceptions. I'm willing to say, you know what? Let's allow all those cases to be, abortions to be allowed. Not because I believe it's the right thing to do, but because at least then we can say 99% of the cases will be done with, right? 99% of cases, the child will live. So I'm okay with even making those exceptions, because in those 99% of cases, you chose to do something that you knew could create a child from. You chose to make that decision. Yet you don't want to have any consequence from it. You want to be consequence-free your entire life. Listen, raising a kid is hard, don't get me wrong. I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids under the age of 2. I perfectly understand. It is very difficult at times. I mean, why don't you think I have any hair at this point? All right, I know that raising a kid can be difficult. But you chose this. You chose to take part in an action that created a child. It's why, even though I think almost all of us have made the mistake of sleeping people who we should not have slept with, the reality is this is why it's so important to choose the right partner. It's why it's so important to choose someone who you actually love and can be committed to. And though obviously as a Christian, I now see the error of my ways and actually do believe it is better if you wait till marriage and all of that, but let's be real, most people aren't. At the very least, what I'm trying to ask is that you wait till you have someone that you trust. At least so you can trust. I think of some of the people who I slept with and realized, oh dear Lord, if I had a child with them, my whole life would, in a way, about would have been ruined, right? I mean, these women were absolutely awful, to say the least. So I know we all make mistakes, but the reality is, if you make the mistake, then it's your burden to bear. You have to deal with this, and you shouldn't be able to kill someone to get out of that burden. All right, it is just as wrong to kill them when they're still in the womb as it is to say, oh, this 1-year-old is just really driving me crazy. It would be so much better if I just didn't have them and then killed them then. It's no different. It is absolutely no different. Yet, the Democrats here, they actually are now trying to say a child that is born alive, a child, again, that is breathing, that is screaming, that is crying, that is reaching out, trying to get, try to get nutrients from the mother, is trying to get attention and love from the mother. That child can be killed, can be done away with. Sorry, they will say they won't actually kill it. What they'll do is they'll sit it aside and just let it die. They won't provide the care needed. They'll let it die, which almost might be even worse. I mean, just my God, they basically put it in a waste bin and just let it cry until it stops. And I mean, you can actually, again, it about brings me to tears talking about this, but there's interviews with people who've worked in abortion clinics who have talked about this. Children that were born who were basically put in a garbage can crying until eventually the crying stopped. Just horrendous things that have happened. And again, this isn't a conversation of pro-life, pro-choice. This is a conversation about a child that has been born. Can you kill it? And the Democrats are saying, yes, we can.